Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I would like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting for January 28, 2026. For information on council meetings and how to participate, please visit our website at everettwa.gov/citycouncil. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Bourbano.
Here.
Councilmember Tui.
Here.
Councilmember Weir.
Here.
Councilmember Bader.
Here.
Vice President Ryan.
Here.
President Schwab.
Here, and at this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Zarlingo to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Tui to read the land acknowledgement.
Certainly. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Stahupshi people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon, President Schwab, Council, and our community. I have just a couple comments today, starting with addressing some of what's happening at the federal level. Like so many people across the country, I was horrified and heartbroken by the tragic deaths of Renee Good, Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, and Keith Porter in Los Angeles, as well as the disturbing federal immigration enforcement actions we're seeing nationwide, including here in Everett. What we're seeing at a federal level is unacceptable and deeply concerning. I care deeply about the safety, dignity, and rights of all our residents. In Everett, our focus is serving everyone in our community and maintaining trust with our residents. We comply with Washington state law and our own city policies to not assist federal civil immigration enforcement. The Everett Police Department does not enforce federal immigration law and does not support ICE investigations. If our officers were to witness an obvious or excessive force situation involving any other officer, including federal agents, I have every expectation that they would intervene when it's safe for them to do so. We also do not share our flock data with federal agencies. I recently met with local Latino and immigrant serving community leaders at a roundtable to hear firsthand how this has impacted our neighbors and to reaffirm our city's commitment to serving everyone who calls Everett home. And Chief Getz joined me for that meeting. No one in our Everett community should ever hesitate to call 911 or ask for help from the Everett Police Department out of fear it could put them or their family at risk, because our goal is to keep everyone in our community safe. And as you exercise your rights, we encourage everyone to be cautious, stay aware of your surroundings, and look out for each other. If at any point you feel unsafe or threatened, please don't hesitate to call 911. So with that, I also want to shift over to one of our agenda items today. We have a first reading of an ordinance that would provide us a new tool for addressing unlicensed and unpermitted mobile food vendors. We want to make sure that people are able to enjoy Everett's food scene confidently and safely, whether that's a restaurant, a food truck, or something else. Many local businesses and community members have expressed concerns about an increase in these unlicensed vendors popping up around town. And we took these concerns very seriously and started working on a plan late last year. Our goals are to protect customers from serious foodborne illnesses caused by improper food handling and unsafe food service practices, support safe neighborhoods by reducing fire dangers and helping prevent unsafe setups, help workers by ensuring basic safety standards, and ensure fairness for food businesses who follow safety and sanitation rules and maintain the required licenses. So Dan Templeman and Lacey Offit are going to share more about this ordinance when we get to that agenda item, and that's all I have today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to old business. Do I hear a motion for approval of the minutes for January 21st, 2026?
Council Vice President Ryan so moves.
Councilmember Bader, seconds.
Motion and seconds been made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Bourbano.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Weir.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Vice President Ryan.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes. Okay, now time for public comment. which includes written comment acknowledgement. Under our rules, written comments shall be considered in the same manner as oral comments. Persons submitting comments must provide their name and city of residence, and that's required to be made part of our official council record. Good afternoon, Angie. Do we have any written comments or anyone to sign up to speak this afternoon?
Good afternoon, President Schwab. We have received one written comment from David Bly regarding the unlicensed mobile food vending units. And that was provided to City Clerk, Administration, Legal, and Counsel for the record. And I do have David online, but I'm just going to ask if he wants to wait till we get to that item to speak. So just one moment. Hi, David. Can you unmute? David, are you there?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes. Would you like to wait till we get to item 8 to speak, or do you wish to speak now?
I would like to speak now because I'm actually at work and
Oh, sure. Okay, so if you can, once you see the timer on the screen, if you can, are you able to do video or no?
I'm not right now, if it's
Okay, no
okay.
problem. All right, well, if you can state your full name and city of residence, you will have 3 minutes to speak, starting, oops, now.
Okay, my name's David Bly. I'm a restaurant owner here in Silver Lake, so I live in Everett. I just have a quick comment about all these tents that are popping up on the side of the roads here and how utterly unfair it is that they're able to set up directly across the street from businesses that pay licensing fees and have monthly inspections and comply with all the regulations and rules that are set forth by the health department. And these tents are just popping up after work hours. I'm guessing just to avoid possible health inspections. And there's like the ones on 19th and 110th, or not, excuse me, the one that pops up on 19th Avenue and 110th Street. They set up on the sidewalk of the city street, making people have to walk around it, and they have open flames, and they're right across the street from two restaurants that serve pretty much the same kind of food, and they sell for half the price because they're not complying with any of the rules or regulations. And um that's pretty much my comment, is just how they're not following the sanitation policies. There's no sinks, they can't have potable water to wash their hands or do any of the refrigeration that I have to deal with. And when my health permit goes up every year, this year it's pretty much doubled in the last 3 years. We have, we have permits for our signage, we have permits for everything, and we have the health inspector. And I just think this ordinance is needed because it's just unfair and makes me wonder why I even comply with all these fees and permits when people could just set up on the side of the road and compete with me. And that's my comment.
Okay, thank you, David. And that concludes our public comments.
Okay, thank you very much. On to council comments, and we'll begin with Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, just one this afternoon. I do a quarterly newsletter for our local neighborhood organization, now called the Silver Lake Neighborhood Association. It was originally the Silver Lake Action Committee, and I delivered a paper copy of that to someone I want to recognize, Peggy Claflin, one of the original members of this. That neighborhood organization is 40 years old this year. I think I've been a member for 35 years. So Peggy, who was part of the original organization of that neighborhood group, deserves recognition for being part of this for all these years and being such a positive force in her neighborhood. So didn't want to let that anniversary go by without recognition. And that's it for me today.
Thank you. Councilmember Burbano.
So yesterday I had the pleasure to meet with the Animal Shelter Advisory Board, and I was quite impressed by the work they did. They commented on the work they did during the flooding, housing the lost pets and all the animals that got affected by the flooding. So it was very interesting to learn all they did. I went to visit the animal shelter on Friday, and then I will visit again at the end of the week with one of the members of the advisory board. At home, we actually have a pet that is adopted, and we really love her. And I am a big supporter of the animal shelters and that type of thing. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
No comment today. I just wanted to thank the mayor for her comments regarding public safety. Really appreciate that. And I appreciate our police department and the hard work you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Weir.
Hi, so I attended the first meeting for the Everett Historic Commission last night for the year. And that was actually really fascinating. I know it may not seem like it to some people, but it was, the members of that group have a really amazing range of skills and backgrounds that they bring to the table. So it was nice to meet all of them. One of the city's representatives that's a long-range planning department shared an overview presentation that they put together for just talking about the Secretary of Interior standards for what constitutes historic preservations and the steps that go into that. And that was interesting to learn because, you know, being brand new to that committee. They also elected their new chair and vice chair, and they welcomed 2 new board members. Unfortunately, they do have a member that has had to step down, so they're looking for 1 more volunteer for that committee. If anybody has an interest in historic preservation and planning for that, they would be excited to have some new folks join. So there's great resources available on the city's website under the commission page, and that's all for me.
Thank you. Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. Just real quick, attended the Council Neighborhoods meeting this past week. Great presentation by Connect Casino Road. I learned some new information about that too, so that was fascinating to hear that. And just would point out to my colleagues that I noticed on their agenda now they're asking the various neighborhood reps to, amongst other things, report if their council member attended. So just letting my colleagues know that, and if you, those of you that are district reps, if you need help and can give me enough notice, I'm happy to step in when I can too to help out because I know you guys carry a disproportionate amount of that burden. So anyhow, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Great. Good afternoon. Let's see, it's been busy. On Monday, I was down in Olympia all day for the Housing and Homelessness Advocacy Day with representatives and advocates from literally all over the state. So it was great to see. I think they'd had a group picture of like 800 people on the Capitol steps. So it's great to see such a large force of people sharing the importance of safe, decent, affordable housing with their state representatives. So I had a chance to meet with our 38th legislative district representatives while I was down there, and they're very supportive of the work that we're doing here at the city to address housing and homelessness. And then they have quite a lot of work that they have ahead of them to continue addressing it and making sure that everybody has an affordable place to live. So kudos to our 38th LD team. We're definitely in good hands. And then yesterday I joined for the point in time count that the county had administered to, I think it's every jurisdiction across the whole United States at some point this week should be doing a point in time count to count the number of individuals who are unhoused. And so I was assigned to the South Everett area, and I had a chance to around Silver Lake to help count people that were sleeping outdoors or didn't have a safe place to stay. And so they usually come out with the results sometime in March or so after it's all compiled. So but kudos to our county team for the work that they do to help into the city for addressing homelessness. This morning, my new liaison assignment is with the Public Facilities District. And so I joined for their meeting this morning, and it was great to hear updates from staff and the rink managers and folks that are involved with the Angel of the Winds Arena. They shared good news about their healthy financial standing and also their healthy utilization of the ice. And I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware that on the second Friday of each month, there's a community access skate night at the community ice rink with the entrance there along Broadway. So if you're thinking about trying ice skating, you're welcome to join. You have to get a ticket ahead of time, but it is free and a great way to get out on the ice and hopefully not break something. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor, for your comments. Really appreciate that. I know law enforcement has some extraordinary challenging times ahead or currently, so I appreciate your support for our community and for the police department. Also, just as a reminder, the permit services on floor 2. I took a short visit. It's amazing. It's great. We've been talking about the permit services and trying to simplify it and make it easier on our builders. So thanks, Dan, and your staff. Thanks, Mayor, for all the hard work that's gone into that. It looks like it's working very well. So appreciate that. Also, I wanted to remind everyone that may be watching and here that we have a council retreat this weekend. It's January 31st from 9 a.m. To approximately 3 p.m. at the Everett Station Warehouse Room on the 4th floor located at 3201 Smith Avenue. The public is welcome to attend, but public comment will not be permitted. So we'll move on to administration. Good afternoon, Dan.
Hey, good afternoon, Council President. No administrative update today.
Okay, how about our city attorney's office?
No updates and no executive session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to our consent items 1 through 5. Do I have a motion?
Councilmember Bader moves the consent items.
Second the motion.
Okay, a motion and second's been made. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
Councilmember Bourbano.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Weir.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Vice President Ryan. Yes. President Schwab.
Yes, thank you. We'll move on to item number 6. Proposed action item, Council Bill 2601-01. First reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled 2026 Traffic Signaling Relamping. Its third and final reading will be 2/11/26. Any questions or comments from council? Is there admin report or comment at this time? Okay, then we'll move on to item number 7. Also proposed action item, Council Bill 2601-03. First reading, adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled Downtown Streetscapes Planting Renovation. Third and final reading will be February 11th, 2026. Are there any questions or comments from council? Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about our community block grants. Is anybody here? No, okay. I'm just curious if we received more grants this year were available for this, because this is a different type of community block grant, I think, than our normal. Is that?
Yeah, I need Julie Woolley to answer that
Okay.
question. I can have her follow up with you.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
great.
you. Mhm.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, so move to our briefing and proposed action item number 8. Council Bill 2601-02. First reading, adopt an ordinance providing for the regulation of enforcement of unlicensed mobile food vending units. Third and final reading will be February 11th, 2026. Dan, did you want to start?
Please, thank you, Council President Schwab. I just wanted to add a few more details on to Mayor Franklin's earlier comments about the need for this ordinance. Over the last several months, I've had the opportunity to do quite a bit of research on this issue. I've spoken with many upset and frustrated community members, as well as county health department officials and city, county, and state law enforcement. And while all of these individuals and groups recognize the obvious public health and business fairness concerns that arise with this type of operation, none of them have yet figured out a real effective way to address this problem. I've learned that these unpermitted and unlicensed food vendors have become a challenge for cities and counties up and down the entire West Coast over the past year. And currently, neither the Snohomish County Department of Health or the City of Everett have adequate enforcement tools to address this challenge. So this ordinance will provide city staff with an effective tool to not only educate unpermitted and unlicensed mobile food vendors, but also take enforcement action if they continue to repeatedly operate in violation of city and county codes, which is exactly what we're seeing today. I want to reemphasize that this ordinance is all about public health and safety and fairness, as you heard from the caller that commented earlier today. We know that most of these stands that we've encountered lack proper hand washing and sanitation facilities. They sell meat products to members of our community at temperatures that are well below the required minimum temperature. I've seen readings actually at about 70 degrees on some of the meat products, and the minimum temperature required to ensure that bacteria is killed is anywhere between 120 and 130 degrees. So we know that is happening out there. We know that most of these stands have employees that are working around open flames without proper safety equipment. We know that many of these stands dump their grease down storm drains, and that they create an unfair playing field for food vendors and restaurants that do comply with all permit and license requirements and follow the rules. I want to also note that passing this ordinance will not eliminate the opportunity for warnings and education. And in fact, that will remain a primary component of all of our enforcement efforts. I believe that this ordinance provides clarity and consistency so that enforcement is fair, transparent, and focused on community safety, and hope that you will pass this ordinance when it comes back before you on February 11th. And with that, I'd like to introduce our Assistant City Attorney and Police Legal Advisor, Lacey Offit, who will now walk you through the elements of this proposed ordinance. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Hello. Nice to be here in front of all of you, Council President. I'll give you a little bit longer of an introduction because I haven't had the pleasure of working with some of you council members who are newer. I'm Lacey Offit, as Dan said. I've been an assistant city attorney here for nearly 10 years. For about 5 of those, I was in the prosecutor's office handling all the duties that entails. And then for the last 5, I've been primarily advising the police department. I often find myself in front of you all with police-related and criminal law-related ordinances, updates, and that's what we have here today. I'm going to walk you briefly through, as Dan said, the variety of structures that this ordinance seeks to put in place for all the reasons that Dan outlined. I also have present with me Deputy Chief Hendrickson, who has been thoroughly briefed by others in the department on the education efforts that the police department has already undertaken, should there be questions on that topic, although he's getting off the hook as far as being a part of the presentation unless you bring him in. So I'm just, as I said, going to walk through the ordinance very briefly. As many ordinances do, we start with the definitions of the ordinance. These are intended to carefully delineate the business activity that is intended to be regulated, including defining who the employer is, as distinguished from the people who are employed by the employer. And that becomes an important distinction when we walk through the ordinance, when we get to the penalty section. It's also very important for enforcement to be clear about who it is that we are, and therefore who it is that we are not intending the ordinance to apply to. So there is a lengthy definition of what a mobile food vendor is. We then move to the requirements and the restrictions that apply to anybody who meets those definitions. There are 3 types of requirements and restrictions embedded into the ordinance. The first is the licensing requirements, arguably the most important, which would require both a food permit, an applicable food permit for the type of vendor that we have in front of us, as well as a city business license issued by our own city clerks. Next, we walk into the operational restrictions. These do things like regulate the hours of operation, require adherence to food fire code provisions, and regulate any damage to underlying property, such as pouring grease down storm drains. We expect that anybody who is out there who is operating in a lawful manner to return the location that they're operating on to at least as good of a condition as it was before they started operating. Lastly, we have the location restrictions. The purpose of these location restrictions, and there are many, are for the safety of the vendors, for the safety of the patrons who are attending to these mobile food vendors when it comes to the built environment related safety concerns, things like clearance from bus stops, not operating within parking spaces, ingress and egress of vehicles, and public utilities to maintain the safety of the people who would be utilizing and operating those mobile food vendors, but also for people who are otherwise trying to use our sidewalks, trying to use our public parking spaces or private parking spaces, as well as making sure that folks are safe from potential vehicle safety hazards. And they also include, the location restrictions also include that they are not operate on public streets or sidewalks without applicable permitting from the city. Next, we walk into the exemptions that are delineated in the ordinance. Exemptions in legalese means that there's no criminal liability that could result if they fall into one of those exemptions. These are things like licensed food trucks. These are things like nonprofits, and especially farmers markets who are operating within the city. These exemptions are intentionally broad so that we don't sweep wanted activity in the city into the regulations that we're talking about here today. Enforcement of the ordinance is, as Dan alluded to, intended to be criminal. There is, as Dan said, there are real restrictions on the abilities of our partners, local and state, to enforce the type of activity that we're seeing. And so this is intended to be a law enforcement ordinance. It does provide for parallel enforcement authority for state or local health officials. So this isn't usurping any authority that those officials would otherwise have. This is intended to be parallel and in concert with those other enforcement tools that other partners that we have at their disposal. And finally, the penalty, as we talked about at the very beginning of my presentation, there are two levels of penalty. One for the responsible operator, and this is responsible in the sense of they are the people out on the street operating the mobile food vendor unit. And then there's the employer, the people who are sending them there, the people who should be getting their business licenses, the people who should be responsible for making sure that their workers have food permits, food handling permits, and that they're operating within the dictates of the health department. The reason for, and those are enforced and criminalized differently. The responsible operator, the person who's there on the street, is subject to the potential for misdemeanor offense that has a maximum jail sentence of 90 days in jail, $1,000 fine. Having worked in the prosecutor's office for many years, I can tell you that almost nobody gets that full extent of the 90 days, but nevertheless, it's there should it be needed. The employer, however, who has more responsibility from the business standpoint, more responsibility for the safety standpoint, is subject to a gross misdemeanor. That is defined as up to a 364-day jail stay and a $5,000 fine. The reason for this, as all of you can surmise, and as Mr. Bly, our public speaker, so aptly pointed out, is to encourage permitted operations in order to reduce the risk of foodborne illness and incentivize the proper permitting and rigorous food safety standards that our community should be able to expect from people operating here in the city. I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have or pass it off to somebody who's better equipped to answer those questions.
Questions from council? Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I have a few questions and then I have few comments as well. Surprise, surprise. I'm a little bit confused by the exceptions section because I'm reading this as about mobile unlicensed mobile food vendors, but then there's exemptions for people who sell newspapers, and so I'm not seeing many of these exemptions even fitting into the category of a mobile food vendor. So I'm hoping you can kind of help clarify why some of these exemptions are listed when they're not necessarily selling food, or, could a mobile food vendor be a nonprofit? And then even though they're not licensed, they can still operate. The exemption section just reads kind of odd to me. So I was hoping a little bit of clarity would be
Sure, absolutely. As I said, the exemptions is intended to be very broad, so as to be very careful as to not sweep into any regulations and any reading, even the most conservative reading or even the most wild reading. We want to make sure that people who are out there doing what they need to be doing are exempt from the regulations here. So things like operating a lemonade stand. We want to encourage our kiddos to get out there and learn about the economy. Things like the nonprofit organizations, as you alluded to, nonprofit organizations specifically are not sounds silly to say, but they're not for profit. We want to make sure that we're targeting folks that are out there who are operating for profit, who are operating a business in the legal sense of that, and not inadvertently sweeping in things like selling cookies and that sort of thing.
I mean, I see, candidates and sign waivers on this list too, but if they have a box of granola bars for sign waivers, I don't see that as like qualifying as an unlicensed mobile food vendor with a spit of meat out in the open air.
Yep.
So it might not be necessary to trim it or whatnot, but some of these just don't. It's like a circle and a square peg situation. So, yeah, I guess that's just my confusion.
Sure, we can take another look at that with our team and see if there are any ways that we can even make it more clear, noting that concern. Thank you.
Councilmember Bader.
Thanks, Council President. Lacey, great presentation, and thanks to you and everybody else who worked on drafting this. I know drafting legislation into all the other things you have to do has got to be time consuming, and I appreciate that. And obviously, probably like all my colleagues, gotten calls about this, and someone shared with me what the city of Sela had done to deal with this in terms of at least a temporary seizure of equipment. It seemed like that would be have an immediate effect. I'm worried about, as a citation works its way through the system, things take time, things still happen. People, as we know from traffic offenses, ignore citations, et cetera, all the time. Just kind of curious if we would ever, anyway, look at that. So
Sure.
go ahead, sorry.
I think I understand your question. I didn't touch on it in the presentation, but I do want to point out the final section of the ordinance as it's drafted with relation to impounding the property. There are a number of ways law enforcement could legally impound property. Without getting too into the weeds on constitutional law, we wanted to be protective of people's constitutional rights to have their property. And so we intentionally left out some more strict provisions with regard to impound, with the intention that with training, when we talk about this with officers, we'll make sure that there are very clear guidelines as to when impounds are proper, when they may not be proper, and how to make the judgment call into which of those sections that the particular instance may fall into.
Councilmember Ware.
So can you share what kind of outreach has been done to these mobile food vendors? Because I've drive by them. They, from the street, look like they are pretty, official. So I'm sure that most patrons and residents don't even realize that they're operating in the, without the permits and the safety standards that they should be. But, and I'm going on, the understanding that there has been outreach to these already. Can you share a little bit about what has already been done to try to get them the information they need about proper permitting and safety?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can see Deputy Chief Hendrickson lurking over here over my
Great.
left shoulder.
And then I have a couple other things after that. But
I'll start
yeah.
by saying that the health department has been a good partner in sharing this information broadly. They've had public education campaigns. We have tried to redouble those efforts by pairing one of our lieutenants with health department officials, and they've gone out and they've talked with some locations that we know of here that have been reported to the city in an effort to educate the people there and to get more information about how they're operating. Deputy Chief, perhaps you can provide some more insight into what those outreach efforts have been.
Jeff Hendrickson with the city. Yeah, for the last 2 months, we've been doing operations during the evening times where we send out officers and lieutenants to actually make contact with all the vendors. We created forms through communications to explain exactly what the laws were. They're in Spanish or English. We actually always take a Spanish speaking officer to make sure there's clear communication with everybody. We explain all the rules. We partnered with the health district, at least on one case. They also did the same as well. I believe also community development, before we even got involved, went out, made contact with everybody, even set up a workshop on how to become legal, if you will. And I don't think anybody took us up on that offer. So.
No, they haven't. And again, as I mentioned in my opening comments, the education and outreach will continue even after this ordinance hopefully passes. So a lot has been done and we'll continue to do that.
Okay,
And yeah, we will be very careful about making sure we're very communicative. We'll be very visible in full uniform and fully marked police cars when we do this. So be very clear who we are and what we're doing.
okay, Councilmember Tui?
Oh,
I'm sorry, did you have one
I
more?
had a couple, yeah.
Okay, keep
if I-
going. All right.
Thank you for that, because like I said, I think a lot of people drive by and they're trying to support a local, entrepreneur. And so it's important just for our public to be aware as well that that's not the case. So I had a question about the penalties. So the fine for employees, because my guess would be that a lot of these individuals that are working there maybe don't have a lot of information about the actual business side of what's going on. They're just brought in to run the stand. But is the penalty per incidence for like the employer, if we were to find that maybe one employer had 4 different stands, or they continued to reopen even after receiving, was it a penalty per incidence? Because it seems like targeting those employers is the key, more so than penalizing these folks that maybe not having a lot of other job opportunities in front of them. This is what they're doing.
Yes, I agree with you. I think targeting the employers to the extent that we can identify them is going to be more fruitful in addressing the issue. When we pass criminal ordinances and they designate misdemeanor, gross misdemeanor, that designates the maximum fine. So should there be criminal penalties imposed against a responsible operator and it works its way through the court system, first, that penalty does not get assessed until they're found guilty. That's beyond a reasonable doubt by a judge or a jury. So they've had due process in that way. Second, judges have to consider a person's financial ability to pay those fines when they impose those fines. So it is not going to be, in almost any circumstance, the full $1,000 penalty. And in many cases, for indigent defendants, it's going to be 0. And that's the judge's obligation to assess by constitutional law and case law.
Any more? You good? Okay. Councilmember Tui, well, I want to make sure since I catch up. Okay. Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, I just have a question. This might be more for administration about a public awareness campaign for, what should we look for and how, if we identify someone who we don't think has a business license, what can we do? What should the public do?
Well, I can say we don't have the resources to do a full public awareness campaign, but we have produced these, which we share with the vendors. But I would offer to our public, if you do not see a business license or a sign, if you don't see water, it's not safe. I've been shocked when I actually walk up to these places and see a line of people waiting to get speared meat where people have no gloves, no hand washing, nothing. Like, it's not safe. So these vendors, it's a Costco table, a skewer of meat, and maybe they've got a cooler. Like it's very clear that they're not operating. So when you walk into any establishment, you would see, oh, look, there's a business license, there's the health permit. Those are the things that our community should look for. We will work in partnership with the health district, but their resources are scarce as well. They're the lead on trying to educate the public on health issues like this presents. And we'll try to be as outspoken as possible, but I would encourage all of us to talk about this in neighborhood meetings and with the community. I've certainly been outspoken in all of my engagements that these are not safe vendors.
Yeah. Well, I think, having something on our website that can link them to what, who should I call? 911? Should we do that? Or who else should we call?
Yeah, we'll definitely, that's part of our communications plan that we have drafted, and whether it's through Everett at Work or some other means, providing an opportunity for community to provide the information to us. But again, obviously with the realization that everything is dependent on resources available at the time and workload.
Okay, Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, my comments here probably mostly on the form of comment and less questions. And I do want to recognize the apparent charm of something that seems to be small scale, apparently local, and potentially less expensive. But clearly that isn't the reality. And I've heard some about the potential for exploited or trafficked workers. Indeed, I think in some cases, the people you see opening the cooler or handling the meat are victims of this rather than perpetrators. And there's clearly a problem with sanitation and safety, and in particular, no responsibility for the consequences of unsafe food. We may be talking about owners that are from another state, really impractical for us to ever go after, and yet the danger to our residents is real. I spent a couple of years on the county's Board of Health, and one of the things that came up repeatedly and that we discussed we were trying to, especially with respect to food trucks or similar temporary installations, we were trying to draw a very careful line in terms of what we required and what was practical for them and still ensured public safety. So inherent in the work that the Board of Health has been doing now, Department of Health for the county, is a lot of work to get that public safety and to avoid an undue load on the businesses. And the load on the businesses is not tiny. This is a significant thing, as our commenter had said in his written comments to us. There's a real significant load there of process and procedure and cost and time delays. But that's what we need to do to avoid sickening large numbers of people. And we would sicken those people with no ability to go after the real perpetrators here. And that leads me to the kind of last point that I wanted to make in terms of enforcement. I think we have a minority, a small minority of people out there who do not care a whit for the laws or the regulations. There are some of the same people who may be exploiting or trafficking some of the employees. They really only care what is going to stop them. And I think it would be it'd be a poor use of resources if our only or our main focus was citations that would lead to prosecution, but indigent defendants where we would be providing defense for them and then no ability to find them and not really change their behavior. So I guess I'll put a point out there, draw a point to it that I think to some degree what will stop this, at least stop it in this community, is the confiscation of some of the materials, because that's the only thing that practically stops it. So I would say we need to be ready for that. If we're truly serious about stopping this, that is the one direct short-term thing that would actually change things. And it's similar to some of the things like street takeovers that appear in some cities. Citations are often impractical and can be ineffective. So that's kind of my summary of the situation. I'm sorry to go on so long, but certainly from my time with the Board of Health, I know there was great care taken to try to do the right thing for reputable vendors. And I have great respect for the restaurants that are out there doing all the things they need to do, because it is a lot of things, but that's what we need to do to protect public health. And if one's ever had a significant case of food poisoning, you know what that kind of stuff is like. It's dangerous, especially for our vulnerable populations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, more? We'll go around more.
Dan has something to.
I just in response to that, I think that to address the issue of seizure, impoundment of the equipment, that is one of the reasons why we explicitly added that into the ordinance. Officers obviously can impound evidence pursuant to crimes. And it's not necessarily written into every ordinance, but we made a point to highlight that by putting that verbiage into this ordinance. And I'll also just add that it was mentioned, SELA was mentioned somewhere here. That is the only other jurisdiction that I'm aware of in the state of Washington that has taken action such as what's being proposed here today. This will have a deterrent effect. And ultimately, even though we talk about education, outreach, and warnings, which will occur, if arrest has to occur to deter the behavior, from my time in the police department, I know that that is also an effective deterrent. We reserve it for extreme circumstances, but it will be certainly a tool that's available if this ordinance passes.
Councilmember Urbano.
Just have a question on, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on how is this going to be about the efficiency of this process? Between the education, the outreach, the warning, and the fines, how long is that going to take? Because if it is going to take, I don't know, 8 months, 6 months, that's 6 months, 8 months that a local business is being affected. So I really have a concern on that. I wish things were move faster. I don't know, maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on that.
Do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. Well, I know that I've been involved in this issue for probably 10 months now, or, coming up on a year. And that definitely is not swift. This ordinance will allow us, I mean, it does not require a warning, but it will allow us to go out and allow law enforcement to go out and make a contact with a vendor. Technically, but if passed as is, they could be cited or arrested at that moment, and equipment could potentially be seized at that moment. In reality, it's likely that police would provide at least one warning and attempt to educate. And then if they return or they continue to repeatedly violate, which is what we're seeing today, it will be much more swift and quick. And this does provide us with that ability to be much more responsive than we've been able to thus far.
Do we have a process in place to avoid having police officers going to the location, issuing a warning 1 week, and then the next week a different police officer shows up, issues a different warning, but there is no awareness that, this stand is piling up warnings? Is there a process in place to avoid that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we are still developing kind of what that enforcement protocol is going to look like, and we'll definitely have conversation with the police department on that. So far, what's been happening is we've had one lieutenant that has been involved in all of these and kind of spearheading the operation, so that there is some level of consistency, so we know. And I can tell you that that one lieutenant does recognize, for example, a food vendor that law enforcement is contacted at one location that 3 days later is 5 blocks away, to address exactly what your concern is. So we'll continue to have those discussions with the police department, but I'm very, very confident that there will be open lines of communication to avoid the warning, and no consequence.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. This is excellent timing. Yesterday at the Snohomish County Health and Community Services Committee, they hosted members from the Public Health Department and other county officials to talk about what the county is doing, specifically through their health department, to address unpermitted food vendors. The presentation is really fantastic. I'll send it out to my colleagues after the discussion today. But some of the takeaways that I had from listening in was that in 2022, there were 16 complaints about in all of Snohomish County, complaints about unlicensed food vendors, and last year there were 203. So we are seeing quite a few more instances of it happening. It's not just your imagination. And then I appreciate Councilmember Zarlingo's comments. I think you're absolutely spot on. Like, at first glance, it does feel like this charming, like, look at them, working hard to make it type of situation, but it really is a huge concern for the people working there, who are often being trafficked or being forced into exploited labor practices. And I don't think that I understand that the penalty for the workers is a maximum and it's likely not to be applied at all, but I don't think the workers should be fined. I don't think that should be a threat on the table for them, because I think most of these people are there against their will. And it doesn't seem fair to punish somebody who's already being punished to force to work against their will. The food safety concerns are definitely, I think, with the mention about the spit of meat, there's also cross-contamination, because there's often not enough surface area for cooked meat and raw meat to stay separate. So those often are on the same surface at varying times, which is horrifying. And then I've also heard from the presentation yesterday that there is an unwillingness to comply with the application process to become permitted food vendors, which is kind of where why we see ourselves here today. I'm supportive of today's what's before us today. I do have concerns about the fine for workers. And I also wanted to mention too that the health department's planning to convene a working group with Snohomish County Sheriff's Office to come up with with a policy that the county can follow. So if and when that happens and passes, I'd love to have a set of eyes, make sure that whatever we do pass for our third reading is in alignment with what the county passes. Then we don't end up with the difficult situation on our city boundaries where folks might move from one side of the street to the other, depending on what penalties might be. So I will send the presentation and link to the video to my colleagues today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Really appreciate it. And this is our first reading, so we'll have time for more discussion if new points come up. All right, thank you. So we'll move to item number 9, or action item. Reject a bid submitted by apparent low bidder Reese Construction as a non-responsive and award the Lenora Regional Stormwater Facility Project contract to KLB Construction as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder in the amount of $5,905,727.50. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second the motion.
Do we have any questions? Okay, no questions. Clerk, please take the roll.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Bourbano.
Yes.
Councilmember Tui.
Yes.
Councilmember Weir.
Yes.
Councilmember Bader.
Yes.
Vice President Ryan.
Yes.
President Schwab.
Yes, and with no further business, meeting's adjourned.